Okay, so we are coming back to the point. So let's say as an example, we have one access switch and connecting to two core switch. This is stacked and we are connecting fiber cable between these two. Then we are making them as stacking. Then here we'll put port channel or ether channel. So core 1, core 2. This is stacked access switch. This is, let's say, 10 gig 1/1/1, 10 gig 1/1/2. This is example 1/1/1. This is 1/1/2. And we need to mention the port channel number here, example port channel 10 or a lag. So when you do configuring port channel, the benefit for the port channel, these two physical interface will be binded into a port channel. So when an STP looking towards to a destination, how many ports it has, according to an STP, if STP found more than one port towards to the destination, it will become blocked and only one going to be allowed. But according to the port channel, when an STP looking towards to the destination, it can see only port channel number, which is 10. And within this port channel, we can make up to 8 port as abundant. So here now you will get the speed of this port channel is 20 gig. When you configure port channel here, you also need to configure the port channel on the other side. Does not, or you can give the same port channel number or different port channel number on each side. It's locally significant. But what are the minimum details that you need to know when you configure port channel? The port channel, when you configure port channel, there are two types of protocols involved in this port channel. Port channel protocol. One is LACP, or we can say one is PAGP, second one is LACP. These are the two protocols. LACP, Cisco, only works with a Cisco product. Sorry, PAGP is a Cisco, it works only with a Cisco product. And LACP, which is open standard, it works with Cisco and non-Cisco. So let's say when you configure LACP, one switch and other switch. When you configure LACP, the one switch, the mode, MODE, mode of the LACP is, you can configure active. The active means the switch which is trying to send LACP info. It's trying to establish with the other side. You can configure other side active. It can work. Both the side if active, it will work. One side if active and the other side is passive, which also works. So the active means the one who initiating the LACP conversation. Passive means the one who are waiting to receive from the other side. Let's say my side I'm an active and the other side is passive. So I'm pushing my information, sending or initiating towards to the other side of the port channel. So other side, let's say in the access switch side, I configured active, and the core switch I configured passive, or vice versa. So in this case, the core switch side is waiting to receive from the access switch side, and the access switch side is ready to send because of an active. This can work. Even if both the side is active, active also works. But if here I'm configuring passive, and if I'm configuring here as a passive, it will not work because both and are waiting to receive from the other side and no one is ready to send it. So you shouldn't be configured passive on both the side. It must be active active or active passive. Okay, so these are the minimum that you need to know. And also the speed of the port must be matched and the type of the communication should be matched. Always be recommended to configure LACP because we do not know in our environment when we configure, maybe during that time it might be Cisco, but when in the future they're going to add some other equipments uh, to the Cisco devices. So the better to be configured as an LACP. Also, this port channel is applicable towards to your servers. Let's say in some cases, your environment core switch will be act as a server farm switch. Single switch is acting as a core as well as a server farm. Or in some cases, you have a separate core and separate server farm. We will discuss both the scenarios. Let's say you have a core switch is acting as a server farm switch for a time being, and you have a server. Let's say you have a server here, and server have 4 NIC card, network interface card. So here you can see 4 NIC card. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this is we considered as Dell R740, and this is NIC1, NIC2, NIC3, NIC4. Let's say this is iDRAC for management. In some cases, and the best practice, you will be connecting from your server, let's say the NIC1 will be connected to your core 1, and the NIC2 will be connecting to your core 2. And this NIC1 and NIC2 you will be configuring as NIC teaming. You'll be configuring as a NIC teaming. So this is NIC teaming. So when you do NIC teaming configuration on your server side, then here let's say NIC teaming. So both the NIC will have a single IP. Then the other side of the switch side, you need to configure LACP port channel. And this can be trunk port or it can be individual access port with a single VLAN. But when you have a dual port combined from your server, towards your switch 1 and switch 2, and they are recommended to configure NIC teaming, then you have to configure LACP on the other side. So what is the benefit in this case? Let's say if one cable goes down from the server side, or in any terms the core switch 1 goes down, still your server will have a reachability to your destination via core 2, via NIC 2. Or in some cases, we will, if requirement is needed, we will bundle all the 4 NIC into one NIC teaming and will connect. So we'll get higher bandwidth towards to your destination. So the purpose of the port channel, that to bundle multiple physical interface and considered as a logically one. It can be in between layer 3 devices, layer 3 switch, layer 3 routers, or in between layer 2 switches, or in between core switch to access switches, or in between access switch to access switch, or in between your core or server farm switch to your servers. Or if you have an access switch, if you have a 2 access switch and one edge device, and the edge device have a two NIC card, still you can perform port channel. Like in some cases, the access points have 2 NIC, and you need a redundancy in terms of your edge devices. If one of the access switch goes down, let's say you have one access point here, and you have, so let's write one another physical design. You have 2 access switch and you have one AP access point. So here, let's say this 2 access switch are stacked, and this access point connected with the dual cable to switch 1 and switch 2. Then this access switch will connecting to your core 1, and to core 2. So what you can do here, let's say this is your access switch. We'll put the name first floor 01. Access switch first floor 01. Generally, when you do a naming, there must be some legend which you need to follow according to the company's strategy. Now, this access switch is connected to your core switch, and here you can do, and let's say this is your AP01, access point 01. And the access point have 2 NIC, NIC1 and NIC2. Yes, there are some access point which has 2 NIC card which can able to do redundancy. So in this design, what we can do, let's say between your access switch to your core switch, we are performing redundancy. You're performing redundancy. Let's say this is the redundancy, which means if one access switch goes down, the other access switch can perform towards to your core. One core goes down, other core can go up. Likewise. Also, you can do that. You can perform port channel on your edge device level. Let's say I'm going to name it. This is port channel. Let's say that's 10. So this is 20. And this is port channel 30. When you put the port channel, there are also some sequence, some legend which you need to follow. And here also, this is a stacking. So let's say this is you stacked between them. So if you one link goes down, still you are, for example, I have a 10 or 15 users who connected to the specific access point. let's say my SSID, CML, and my AP name or AP group, CML info. So within one AP group, I can place many access points. So why do I need an AP group? Generally, the AP group will help us to address the location of the AP. In a simple way, I have 30 access points. Each floor I have a 10 access points. Ground floor, first floor, and second floor. Each floor I have a 10 access point. Then the best practice, I will create a AP group, CML info ground floor, CML info first floor, CML info second floor. And I'll add the 10 access point which belongs to ground floor will add it into AP group ground floor. So if I need any changes on ground floor AP, I can put the changes on AP group CML info ground floor. So if I do any changes on ground floor AP group will be affected to ground floor APs. So does not require to disturb all the APs in the entire premises. For example, if I need some upgradation or restart or some small changes, then I can go with a specific AP group. So whenever you are get a chance to configure any access point, do not leave them in a default group. When an access point connected to your switch, it will request for the IP. Once it received an IP with a specific wireless protocol, learning protocol between wireless LAN controller and wireless access point, this access point will be registered in your controller with a default group name. We call it as in a technically provisioning. So it will be goes to the default group, then we will create a separate group, then we'll put them into our group. So when you do a group, make a proper design, make a separation about floor wise, building wise, kind of stuff. Then let's say I have a 10 AP01 is one of the AP in this group, and I have a SSID called CML. The SSID you will be creating in the wireless LAN controller, and the role of the AP to get those SSID and boost into your client. So when I check into my mobile, when I look into my mobile, if I am standing under the coverage of AP, I can see the SSID example CML. When I am trying to put the username and password, when it clicks, that username and password will be redirected to your controller through an AP. So let's say if I have 100 users are under AP01, and if this access switch 1, FF01, or this specific link or the core switch, let's say I'm adding one more points into this. So this is all about the benefit and the scope of the port channel I'm going to explaining. So let's say you have one, or in some cases we have a two. Let's say we have a one WLC, wireless LAN controller. In most of the cases we have a redundant WLC, wireless LAN controller, connected to your core switch. Let's say you have a physical connection to this and to here. So your users, which is under CML SSID, talking to your WLC via AP01, going to your access switch, then it is going to your core switch, then it is going to your WLC. So the SSID which you are using as a CML Then what are the services which you're going to get? What are the type of internet that you're going to get? All being defined and rolled under the WLC, not under the AP. AP is just a person or the device which can boost your signals, your strength, your coverage area. So let's say if the core one goes down, and I'm going to create a port channel here as well. So if one link goes down, the other link can act for you. So everywhere when you have a dual devices connecting each other, you must need to configure your port channel in order to avail your complete bandwidth services. So let's say if your one link goes down, or one access switch goes down, or between access switch and core switch, either link, anything goes down, one path goes down, still your end user will resume your services. It will never know that your link goes down because of your port channel services. So when you do a configuration between a port channel, better to define LACP. The reason, see, you have a WLC. It's not mandatory that all your devices from the same vendor. Maybe your wireless LAN controller from Aruba, your core switch from Cisco, and even maybe your access switch is from Cisco, and your servers from Dell, and your edge devices from different vendors, different companies. So better, because when you do some design, you should think about your long-lasting concept. Once you design and your service is up and running, you cannot modify as easy than what you do during your staging configuration, your offline configuration. So better to design, always go with LACP. So this is an idea when you do design for LACP configuration. And also you need to make them that active. It's a best practice. Now, when you think about your configuration terminology, what you need to do a configuration, you need to enter to the interface, physical interface, and you need to tell that port channel. So let's say the configuration for 10 gig 1/1/1. When I do a configuration, I'm going to the switch interface. What's the interface? Interface 10. Or in a single line, what I can do, interface range 10 1/1/1-2. So I'm entering to the two interface. Then I'm going to tell that switch port, whether my switch port is access or switch port is trunk. Switch port mode trunk. Between switch to switch, always to be defined as a trunk. Then you need to configure that your port channel details. Let's say what default is LACP, so you do not need to define your LACP again, but you need to define what protocol that you're going to use, what's mode, active or passive. So let's say I'm going to say that channel group, GROUP, channel group. Let's say I'm defined here as a port channel 10. So channel group 10, which is your port channel number. Then mode, what kind of mode it is? Active. The moment you give this command, then your two physical interface 1/1/1 and 1/1/2 will become a part of your port channel 10. Then no shut, it's not mandatory always, because by default switch port will become up. Then you will go through interface port channel 10. You are entering to the port channel 10. Then you will configure switch port mode trunk. Now you do not need to configure here switch port mode trunk. It's not needed, optional. When you configure switch port mode trunk under interface port channel 10, then the ports which belongs to port channel 10 will also become automatically switch port mode trunk. But you can configure, it's an optional. Then, when you do a configuration, one of the most important tasks or most important things that you need to remember and to follow your description of the port. Description. You need to define the description in a clear way. And that description, you should need to make your documentation as well. So let's say the description, I'm going to say that connected to 1/1/1 of core 1, which means a later stage, if because this physical interface, you cannot trace it directly. It will be go underneath or backside through the rack or upstairs of the rack. Or if your core switch and access switch are in a different rack, it will go via patch panel splicing. Then it goes backside of the rack. You cannot easily trace it. Therefore, we will put the tagging or labeling on outside of the port. So that label and your internal configuration label, which is the description, must be matched. In the future, if you found any port is down or your port is not up, you need to trace, you need to do some troubleshooting. Only the way that you can easily identify by looking into the description. So this description says that go to the core switch 1, trace out the port number 1/1/1. The similar or equivalent name will be defined on the other side. So the people who are going for troubleshooting will always look into the physical labeling. They will go to the port, they will see what label it is mentioned. If they cannot easily identify, then the least option that we will help them to address it from the configuration perspective. Then the same thing, you will be make a proper document and to hand over to the client so that they can easily identify by looking to the documents. So the document, your physical labeling and your software labeling, which is the description configuration, must be matched. Okay, so this is the best option. So from the entire design, better not to do better not to repeat or duplicate the same port channel number again and again. Give a different pattern. Let's say all the physical, all the connection in between switches, you can go through with 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 until 20. If your inter-switch connection is within your 10, let's say 10 to 20, and all the servers interconnection, you can give them, let's say 21 to 30. And all the edge devices you can give from 31 to 50 kind of. So always follow the same pattern. So if if a link in between switches, a core switch to server farm switch are not working, then you can easily think that yes, you need to think about a port channel 10 in between 10 to 11 set of thing. And also always be recommended to match your server IP with your physical IP. Example, I'm going to define a port number 1/11 here, and the port number, the equivalent port here is 1/11. Then we recommended to assign an IP address here, the end with, let's say 100.1.1.11/24. And the port channel number is 11. So in between your server and connected towards your switch, your physical port, your IP address, and your port channel number. If possible, your server name with something matched with the level. It is the best and recommended design. Same way, when you connect to the access switch, give a different number, different physical port. Try to match with all your connectivity, your software configuration, your physical labeling, your physical connectivity, everything try to match with, so that it can easy for you to remember and to troubleshoot. Hope you understand until now. We will have more to discuss in upcoming session, inshallah. So let's say hope you enjoy the session today. Let me know if you have any concern or doubts later today. So thank you for being with us. Thank you for watching today's sessions.
Thank you.
From
Thank you,
CML
sir.
Infotech. So you can reach back us if you have any concern, if you have any doubt. Inshallah, see you soon on the next session. Thank you. Have a good time.
Thank you.